Okay, let's talk about some early game of the year thoughts. The reason I brought this up is because I had talked about a game online, and some people had mentioned, it's felt like a weaker year in games, and I think that might be because Microsoft hasn't really released anything this year up until obviously the holiday coming up. Sony had a couple of games, but it wasn't like a God of War or Horizon. I'm thinking that's why people are kind of feeling this way. We know a lot of delays have happened into next year as well. There were people who are hopeful that Breath of the Wild 2 would have come out this holiday. That's in 2022, for example. But I wanted to bring this up now because we're going into the holidays here, and there are going to be games that are coming out. But I figure if we, in August, since we're 8 months into the year, go over what we think could be game of the year or some of our better games, and then we see how they change when we get to the game of the year conversation in like end of November, early December overall. So where are we right now in 2021? What's everyone's favorite games currently that you would put in the game of the year category right now if you had to start making that list?
Monster Hunter Rise, Resident Evil Village.
Let me put this down. I'm going to put this down right now so we come back to it. I just want to see if we have to start taking stuff off and putting things on. We got to come up with a list with 6 games.
I wasn't a huge fan of Resident Evil Village, but I could see why people would consider that a game of the year. Monster Hunter Rise, I think, is self-explanatory. You can put Ratchet on there too. I wouldn't put Returnal, even though some people would. I think it's way too niche.
If it had a save feature, I would.
Monster Hunter Rise, you said. You got Ratchet.
That's all I want. I just want to be able to save the game. That's it.
Clank.
I really wish they added a save.
What else did you have, Sean? You got Ratchet and Clank. All right, so you got to pick 2, Sean. What do you got? What are the 2 you got? Absolutely, that you would throw in.
Right now, today, I would say Monster Hunter Rise and Ratchet and Clank.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
These are like, I feel like it's tough because it's like there are a lot of remasters, a lot of new collections coming out. Like, I feel like this is like kind of tough. I feel like normally I'm like, this is my game of the year, but I feel like it's hard for me to really one comes to mind immediately. I have to think back to what I've played this year.
This is why I'm so interested in the game of the year this year specifically, because there isn't like Breath of the Wild or like God of War or even Last of Us 2, a game that stands out in terms of its quality right now this year. And I don't know if we're going to even see that by the end of the year, where everyone just looks at it and is like, yes, that's definitely game of the year. No real questions asked. It's obvious that this is probably what's going to win. Kind of like how we were with God of War. Even though God of War was up there with Red Dead Redemption 2, I feel like a lot of people looked at God of War and they were like, that's probably going to win. A lot of people looked at Breath of the Wild. They're like, yeah, it's probably going to win. But this year, I don't know. I'm even looking at games coming up, and Battlefield and Call of Duty are going to be viewed as more just action games. I think Halo is going to be viewed like that too, unless the campaign does some crazy stuff. I don't know if that's even going to be in there.
The campaign needs to be something insane, and I think that maybe it gets into that conversation. I think a lot of the reviewers love Forza. I think that has a good chance, even though it's a car racing game. But here's the thing with Forza, it has its own category. It has the racing sports category that they made for it. But it could also win Game of the Year too, though. Maybe. I'm talking about from mainstream.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to figure out when the last racing game was in there, because I don't think we've ever had a racing game in Game of the Year conversation, which is interesting.
Gran Turismo back in the day used to be in there.
Probably on the PS2 era.
I think it's tough for racing games though, because I think a lot of people when they associate Game of the Year, gameplay is definitely a big of it, but also the music, the atmosphere, the story. I think narrative games definitely hit that that element harder, you know what I mean? So it's I like Monster Hunter Rise. To me, I'd say that's one of the favorite games I've played this year, but the story and the narrative was so generic to me that it even makes me hard to want to sell that, even if that makes sense.
Someone mentioned Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk would technically be up, wouldn't it?
It would, but it would most likely need that, like what we were talking about a long time ago, that they would repackage it after a bunch of updates and try to resell it to everyone.
Yep. They need that next gen version to hit this holiday if they really want to be in that conversation.
Do we count Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury, because Bowser's Fury is new content?
I mean, technically, I think you could include it if you wanted to.
I think that depends on if you include the game that OJ and I would probably choose this year for the best game of the year.
Mass Effect. That's the best game.
Yeah,
that's the best game.
That's the best gaming experience I've had this year.
But that's just like a remastered collection, right?
It is a remastered. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But it is a.
They did a lot of work on the first game.
Yeah, but like remember Resident Evil 2? Like when that came out and that was thrown into Game of the Year, there was a lot of controversy around, a lot of pushback. Because they're like, it's a remake, but it's from PS1 all the way up to end. It looked incredible and played different.
And it's a very different game at the end of the day. Like they're very different. The Mass Effect Legendary Edition is the same game pretty much.
But it's still the best game I played this.
Yeah, I think one game that's going to be that's being overlooked in the discussion.
Don't say it. You better not say it.
It's because no one's played it. It's Chicory, A Colorful Tale on PC and PlayStation 5. No one's played it, and
I thought you were
as a top 5 in review scores of the year.
Oh, you know what? Let's pull that up real quick. Let me pull up the old best games for Metacritic scores, because that's usually what happens. Well, at least usually I should say, because we saw it happen with Fire Emblem.
Beta Morgana is not going to be nominated for Game of the Year on Switch, despite having a 98 Metacritic.
What's not going to the house? Okay, the house in Morgana.
That's not going to be nominated.
Why? It has the best score.
Scott, you're gonna have to look into this.
10 reviews. All right?
So
not enough reviews.
I just don't think we can really count remakes, because that's the case. And Skyward Sword's included, and honestly, I would include Skyward Sword again. So
that's a good point.
Let's go with remake.
Original games. We're going like original games then.
Yeah, they're not going to include. Okay. They're not going. They can include a remake like Final Fantasy VII. If it's like a complete
that's more of a
reimagining of the game, it can't be like a remaster or like a port. If it's a remaster or port or like like Mass Effect Legendary, upscale, whatever the case, it falls into any of that. They're just not gonna put it there, even though somebody might like it the most. I know me and Jordan were like, "Yo, that it felt like a new game." It felt like something new, but it's not.
It felt real to me, damn it.
So if we go down
something like Skyward Sword HD is literally Skyward Sword, but in HD. Something like Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Completely different.
Final Fantasy VII Remake is more Final Fantasy VII Remake is more based on Final Fantasy VII, kind of like how The Witcher 3 is based on the Witcher series of books, right? It's not the same, but also kind of
so if I got on the list here after that Morgana game, Disco Elysium Final Cut, Microsoft Flight Simulator going to the Xbox, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, the PS5 version. Well, I mean that came out last year
though, right?
The flight simulator that came out last year, technically.
What's the cutoff date? Is it like
and technically Disco Elysium Elysium already won in the year prior, so
that's what I mean. I'm going I think they're gonna put it at the end of November this time is what they were saying, so I don't know.
Well, Smash Ultimate got nominated for 2019's Game of the Year, so it's just like something I honestly do think Cyberpunk has a good chance of getting nominated this year. What else are you gonna nominate? Mario Golf?
Apparently, Chicory, A Colorful Tale.
A lot of people in chat keep saying Kina. So
I'm saying right now we have to get there.
We're judging on games that are out on market right now. We don't know if Kina is actually going to be good.
Yeah, we need to see. Then there's let's see. Okay, so after Chicory, there is Mass Effect Legendary Edition. It Takes Two, which might actually sneak in.
You might see a lot of indie representation this year due to the limited amount of AAA releases.
Yeah,
but they're not going to win. That's the thing.
FF7 Remake Intergrade, 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 on the Xbox. It Takes Two again. Disco Elysium Final Cut, Fez. It Takes Two. DLC from Streets of Rage.
Yeah, I think Fez has a good shot.
Could Intergrade be included? Because Intergrade was good. But it was so short.
It's like Bowser's Fury almost.
It has to be Bowser's Fury then, yeah. And then we get the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which a lot of people
Hitman 3. I think Hitman 3 is going to be the the wild card. It's just going to be like,
I think they're just going to give it a Ratchet and call it a year.
I agree.
And then we get to Monster Hunter Rise, and then we get to what is currently my game of the year.
Death's Door.
It is Death's Door.
Oh, I haven't got to play it yet.
Is currently my game of the year based on what's out right now. It is on.
I want to play it.
Let's go. Everyone should play it. It is very good. It is $20. It is on the PC and the Xbox. I'm sure it's going to go to other platforms later. It's from Devolver, and I think it's a timed exclusive thing they have right now. It doesn't take much to play it on a PC, and it'll play fine on the VCR Xbox because it's not necessarily graphically intensive, but it is a very good game, and I think everyone should experience it.
It looked fun.
I saw we've had John Riggs on the cast before. He was playing it the other day. I was like, oh, this looks great. It's
an isometric, like think of top-down Zelda. It has technically traditional dungeons, and it has a bit more difficulty, not necessarily like a Souls-like difficulty, but it is harder than what you get out of traditional Zelda games.
And the bosses look fantastic in it.
Bosses are awesome. They're all very different and unique, and you get different upgrades and stuff that you can find in the world. They just kind of go around, like it's free roaming essentially after you get to a certain point. And the game itself plays well, feels really good playing it. So I completely recommend it at $20. I think it is a game that could find its way into the game of the year conversation if we don't have anything that just like completely blows people away. So definitely one that I was not expecting to be as good as it was. So make sure everyone checks that one out.
Yeah, my problem is that I've been basically playing like pretty much all the games that have come out this year that I've been interested in are re-releases and remasters.
Yes.
and whatnot. Like even like most of Nintendo's releases are like remasters of some sort, or you have 3D World, and then even like stuff like Miitopia, Famicom Detective Club, Skyward Sword, all that stuff. You know, and then Sony is pretty much done with the year.
Yeah, it's weird.
When did the awards last year? What was the deadline?
I thought it was like November 10th or 11th or something.
It was like
that.
Second half of November. Like your game can't be past like the second half of November.
So did Miles Morales and Demon's Souls make the cut for last year, or will be in the discussion for this year?
Oh, I don't remember Miles Morales getting anything.
Because that completely shifts the conversation.
That's a good point.
That's true.
I think they do this like Miles Morales. It's a new game, but it's like expansion-ish kind of. It's still a new game, but it's like way shorter than the normal Spider-Man. You know. So I'm not sure if that'll be included.
I'm kind of thinking Demon's Souls is going to win something. I don't know if it'll be in Game of the Year conversation. It might win something. They might do like best visuals or score or something.
I think they need to introduce like a remaster or remake category.
I like the idea of that.
Yeah.
I agree.
There's so many that happen each year now that it's just like true. I think it would be a worthwhile category.
Yep, absolutely. It's but like next year, we think anyway, based on some rumors, Dead Space could even release then. So like it's not slowing down with these remakes or remasters. Nintendo will do some more. Sony, I'm sure, will do some stuff. And
I will say this: there's still one more. I mean, we got Metroid Dread this year, so we'll see how that game reviews. We'll see how the games are good.
Come on. Oh my god!
What? Sean burst into laughter almost instantly.
Can we mute this guy? Can we mute this guy?
Metroid Dread's not worth talking about.
Another one we have Crash Bandicoot 4. It's About Time. That has an 86 on Metacritic.
Switch port.
PS5. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it came out this year. That's what I mean. I'm going down Metacritic. I'm like, man, all these games, like it's like we've already had them. Like the Neo collection. It's like Yakuza Like a Dragon. That was out last year. It's just on the PS5 this year. Yeah, it's tough. Like you gotta really start digging down to these.
Do you think they're still gonna have the best fighting game category at the Game Awards?
What fighting game came out this year? Guilty Gear?
That's the thing. They never have fighting games, and then they just.
We are disrespecting Guilty Gear right now.
No, I said Guilty Gear is like is Guilty Gear the only game that came out? Hold on.
The Nickelodeon game.
They'll put smaller ones next to it.
Did Jump Force get a re-release or DLC?
No.
Let me double check. We got to double check.
There is another one coming out this year. I saw some indie studios.
I've checked with my sources, and it's definitely getting it got like one of the JoJo's. It got one of the JoJo's, Giorno. It got Giorno, I think, this year. So, and it's getting more DLC. So Jump Force.
Finally, the recognition it deserves.
Fighting game of the nominee of the year, Jump Force.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, David, for becoming a member. We appreciate it.
Outriders came out this year.
It did.
Outriders did. It did.
That'll probably get something because what else? I don't know.
Shooting game?
What else came out this year?
I don't know. Action game.
Sure. Live service? I don't know. Are they still supporting that game?
New Snap.
I think this just really goes to show, like, obviously how much the pandemic really affected things on projects that were started before and like well into development, which we're still able to release this past year in 2020 and like probably be delayed by a couple months versus games that they definitely needed the time and all the resources and they haven't been able to finish these in time because at least from what I've heard, there are actually quite a few games that are in the works that are going to be awesome, but they definitely got absolutely destroyed because of this pandemic. So I think this year is definitely evident that the gaming industry. I mean, every industry really got hurt, but we're kind of grasping for straws at this point.
We're trying to come up with like right now. I put 4 on here so far: Monster Hunter Rise, Ratchet & Clank, Death's Door, and It Takes Two. And we have to come up with 2 more.
Then you throw in Halo when that comes out.
Well, we're just going with games that are out right now, like just looking at the last 8 months, basically.
You can put Resident Evil in there.
Yeah, Resident Evil Village was
Village. I'll go in.
I definitely feel like Resident Evil and Ratchet & Clank are going to be like the top 2 contenders that I see, but I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if Ratchet got it, because the fact that not only is it a new original game, but also like all the future potential it shows in comparison to games that are already out in the market right now. Like I think a lot of people will count that as something kind of, with all the PS5 capabilities, a reason to be Game of the Year, because it's so forward.
So I'm looking down the list here, and like it comes down to, at this point, seemingly Returnal or Hitman 3. It's like where we are with it. I kind of lean towards Hitman 3 because of how interesting and different it was, but
I feel like Returnal has more of a conversation going on around it. Like even now.
I think so too. Yeah. So I'll drop Returnal in there. So right now, as of August 7th, 2021, the game of the year list would be Monster Hunter Rise, Ratchet & Clank, Death's Door, It Takes Two, Resident Evil Village, and Returnal.
Those are good games.
It's not. I mean, you can't have, a heavy hitter every year, right? Especially after a pandemic.
I mean, I don't think any of these games were rated in the even in the 90s on Metacritic.
How did director's cuts hold up?
What?
Going in for the Death Stranding.
Kind of just like
Death Stranding director's
round 2.
cut. What's Tsushima director's cut?
I hope that gets reviewed again, and it does some crazy number or something. We already know
review scores don't matter how high your score it doesn't matter, right? There's no way it matters. Control and Death Stranding are the 2 greatest games ever.
I still can't believe Control is up there like that. I must have played a completely different game.
No, you played the same game. They just didn't have anything else to talk. They didn't play anything else. They're like, oh snap, Control. They didn't play all the games that were good that year, so they said,
"What I skip, Scott? We can change stuff out."
You skipped over the house in Fata Morgana.
That's the one I said we need you to check out. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'll download it right now.
It's the number 1 game, right, on the Metacritic.
It did come out on PC a couple of years ago, though.
Where's Guilty Gear Strive and all this? Because that game's been doing awesome. So
Guilty Gear Strive, I guess, is the fighting game of the year.
They always relegate that to fighting game. It'll probably be up against is it Retromania? That'll be on the list or something.
When can a fighting game go up for Game of the Year?
Smash did it, right?
Smash. That's the only one that I can think about. Smash recently, at least. Smash.
I mean, Street Fighter 6 would have to come out and be ridiculous or something.
Did Mortal Kombat get into Game of the? I don't know if Mortal Kombat.
I don't think it did.
Mortal Kombat 11 got fighting Game of the Year like last year.
Yeah,
which was funny.
So it's So this list is. We'll see. I have a feeling it's going to change quite a bit as we get towards the end of the year with some of these games coming out. So we'll see how it goes. I just wanted to reflect on the last 8 months because it felt like people were saying like it was a little quiet this year, and that makes sense with a lot of the delays and stuff that was happening. And now I'm looking at the list and I'm like, yeah, I mean, has a Monster Hunter game ever been nominated for Game of the Year?
Yeah,
World.
Yeah, World was okay. World was. Got it.